everyone, this is Jillian Sidoti from crowdfundinglawyers.net, and this is our segment, People You Should Know, and today's guest is a super special guest because they are our keynote speaker at CrowdConverge 2018, which is coming up here shortly, and it is Oren Klaff, the author of Pitch Anything. Oren, thank you so much for being here today. I so appreciate it.
Thanks, Jillian. Maybe the episode should be called People You Should Be Cautious of Knowing. Afraid of.
Cool. Don't tell people that. I want them to come to CrowdConverge.
Oh, that's a good point. Yes. Make a good point.
But just for everybody's edification, and as you can tell, I have a little bit of a cold, but I had to come in today and do this interview because I was just so excited about it. I read Oren's book, Pitch Anything, a couple of years ago, and it just changed the way I looked at doing things when coming into a negotiation or asking people for money. Now, I don't do a lot of asking for money, but my clients do. And so it filled me with some great knowledge to pass on to my clients. And he's going to fill you with some great knowledge at CrowdConverge. So, Oren, I'm going to ask you the number one question. How do people pitch anything?
How do you pitch anything? Great question. So good morning. Well, in some ways, in order to know how to do good, right, pitch anything, you first have to understand evil, right? Because these are two opposite sides, two sides to a pancake, no matter how thin. So maybe the question is how to not pitch anything. And we start with that, and then we dovetail into how to actually do it. Because I see about 600 or 700 pitches in varying levels of depth a year, right? So wow. Yeah, I'll see multiple pitches. So you start to see patterns over and over again of the things that should not be done. And I can tell you, if somebody listens to this interview that we're doing and sends me a pitch as a result, or sends you, I can tell you basically what's in it, right? Hi, we're Acme Company. We're the #1 leading company in plumbing integration software in the world. Our software achieves greater throughput, faster ROI, and higher effectiveness than any of the competition. So the people who use us are Microsoft, the Temecula Chamber of Commerce, and the city of Irvine. And here's some quotes from people who really love us. We have the best management team. We've been around for 15 years. We're leaders in the industry. And #1 here is customer service. The customer is always right. Pitch over. So they start with what we are, what we do, features, benefits, who says we're good, are there any questions? That is the way that most pitches are structured, right? And they're over almost before they've begun because the buyer basically knows all these things, right? And so once the buyer knows the features and once the buyer knows the benefits, what he wants to know is the price. Once he knows the price, then the meeting is over and he wants to go to the internet and see if there's anything else available cheaper or free. So that is how to not pitch anything, all right? And so if we say, okay, if 99 out of 100 pitches are given in this way, I'm at, Shark Tank style pitch contest. We see pitches coming in. I invest in companies. People hire us to go raise money. So we really know this stuff, I think, better than anybody else, right? One thing, not to criticize lawyers, but people go to their lawyer, right? And this is another problem with pitching anything. People go to their lawyer and the lawyer gives them good advice, bad advice, no advice, some advice, but advice, because that's what lawyers do. Then they go to their accountant, right? And or the CPA, and the CPA gives some advice, might be good, might be bad. And then they go to a friend and the friend gives advice, and then they go meet an investor and the investor meets. I heard a noise that cannot be here. So we're going to take 1 second. I'm going to make the noise go away, and then I'm going to finish that thought. Give me 2 seconds.
Well, Howard's going to do that. I am thoroughly confused now on how to pitch anything, because how do you get people to understand who you are and what your product or your service is without the features?
Yes, I'm back.
Oh, he's back.
So what happens is our maintenance staff comes yesterday, but it rained, as you know, torrentially. So they want to start today, and that will make this interview very short. All right, hear me out. So we get advice from the lawyer, we get advice from the CPA, and then we go talk to an investor, and he gives advice, and we have a friend who bought a company, sold the company, does the same thing, and he gives advice. And what we end up with is a Frankenstein pitch. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. But in terms of raising money, none of those people, the lawyer, the CPA, the friend, the venture capitalist, the potential investor, the retired executive, none of those guys are out raising money today. Right? And so we get a Frankenstein pitch made of a bunch of advice. And so if we go into how to not pitch anything, it's don't take advice from people who don't have stakes. If somebody's not writing a check, don't take the damn advice from them.
Wait, you got to back up because I'm giving people advice all the time and you're telling me.
No, hold on. Because you have stakes.
Yeah, that's
right.
Yeah.
Why would you listen to me? I'm on a video here. You're not paying me, right?
Yeah.
But I have stakes. If you go on the internet and said, I listened to Oren and Jillian, I went and did what they said and it didn't work, made no sense. We have a real problem because that's our job, right? So we hold ourselves out as saying that's what we do. We give advice for raising capital, right? You go to the CPA, what he does is accounting, right? Or finance. You go to a contract lawyer, they do contracts, right? You go to an investor, right? They invest, they don't raise money. So you go to the professionals who know what they're doing, right? And who have stakes. So if somebody is not in the business of raising capital, or they're not in the business positioning to raise capital, they know what I'm saying. So Frankenstein pitches, features and benefits, starting off with what you have, going quickly to price. These are all ways that presentations go quickly sideways. So what is the way to pitch anything? Rather than starting out with, this is what we do, this is what we have, this is our service, and this is our product, right? In which everybody starts, but it leads to a very quick finish. We want to start out with an idea. Okay. Give me an example of a company that you might be working with.
Well, I'll tell you one thing this morning, which was one of my companies was on Facebook pitching their deal, and they started off with 25% return on investment. And as a securities attorney, that rubbed me the wrong way. So what's
the product? What's the service?
It's a investment in a ground up construction deal.
Ground up construction deal. Okay. So until I understand a lot about this deal, I really don't care how much it makes, right? Because so first of all, in my mind, 25% ROI or means something. So if you're a real estate investor, right? There are these yield bogeys, right? And so when you come off and you say, hey, it's a 25% ROI, what you're signaling is this is basically the highest risk category of real estate investment there is. Okay? Well, think about it. Because a ground lease is a 5-6% ROI, right? Then you might move into some kind of retail, Costco, Walmart anchored, Jamba Juice, Starbucks, Ross, Hobby Lobby type retail center, right? That's going to be like 8 to 9%, 7 to 9% ROI. Then you move up into maybe, residential hard money flip. That's probably, 12%, right? Then you go maybe residential development where we have some advantage. Maybe you're up into 14, 15%, right? How do we get up into the 18s? Some notes, right? Defaulted notes that we're working out over a period of time. How do you go up into 20% yield bogey, right? Real estate in Costa Rica, where are the 25% scalable yields, right? They're not in, they're not in any class A infill city. They're not in Los Angeles, they're not in New York, they're not in Chicago, right? Maybe you go into a secondary market. They're in tertiary market. You probably so 25% tells me this thing is off the chart risk. Why would you start with that, right? And say this thing is so fully loaded with risk and you don't even know anything about it yet, right? So how do I start that presentation? Today, the world is changing very quickly, right?
Okay.
When you anticipate when you skate to where the puck is, or you get to where, if you bought Bitcoin, you know, as I was offered it at $3 and at $30 and $300, right? That was a good time to skate to the puck. What's happening is, and I don't know this project, right? What's happening is, if you look at it, there's a hospital being built. There's a highway going in to service the hospital. The city is putting in a community library, and developers have taken up these 5 major lots for 500 new residences. That's why, right? This change, the demographics and the economics of this community is going to change dramatically in the next 24 months. And there needs to be a ground up retail center in this location. Change is coming. Every good story starts, winter is coming. That's how you start. Not about your project, not about your service, not about your product, not about your return on investment, but an idea. Change is coming. And if you get ahead of the change, you have an advantage.
Oh, okay. So we're talking about working like what the causes of why this project would be great, not why the project independently is great. So we're talking about what's surrounding the project and the advantages with that particular surrounding.
Yes, hear me out. When I tell you I have a project in, what area is this project in?
I'm trying to think. It was in.
It doesn't matter. The dark side of the moon, right?
I want to say Seattle.
Seattle. All right. So it doesn't matter, because once you say I have a project in Seattle, right, and the ROI is 25%.
Yes. Well, that's what they're claiming. Yes.
When they say that, Jillian, by the way, Jillian, quick time for a commercial. Jillian guarantees you, if you send her up to $1,000 unsecurity related around Finner, she guarantees you a 25% return on this webinar exclusively today. Send the money in, and it comes.
That's what I do. I do guarantee that return.
Not even from the firm, but Jillian personally.
Right.
Okay.
If you don't put your money at 25% on the money you paid for this webinar,
yes,
then I will double your money.
So let's go back to Seattle. We're in Seattle, and we say we have a project that returns 25%. What happens to me in my mind, and I know a little bit about this, and whether I know something about it or I don't, a million questions come up. And now you, the presenter, are faced with the target buyer who have questions stacking up, and you don't even know what all those questions are, right? The job of pitching anything, your job is to answer the questions that come up in the order that they come up in the buyer's mind. So if you are triggering questions that you don't have answers to, or that you're not ready to answer, or that you're not going to answer, that's when the presentation goes sideways. When the bot, okay, I've pitched everything: brain aneurysm coils, logistic services, genetic software, dark web data and infrastructure, security software, glucosamine for pets. There isn't something that you're going to come up with that we haven't packaged, pitched, and taken to market. Okay.
Wow.
The job of the pitch is to answer the questions that come up in the buyer's mind in the order that they come up. And what I can tell you is most people pitch chronologically, right? They do two things. They pitch the project, the idea, the service, the product in the way that they remember the details about it. Think about it, right? You learned the alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, right? That's the way you learned it. Go ahead, give me a little bit of the alphabet.
A, B, C, D, E, F,
Okay.
G, H.
All right, stop, let me interrupt you. Now, go from K backwards.
Oh, that's very difficult.
You can do it, right?
Yeah.
Because the mind stores information in a chronological sequence in the way that you learned it. The great thing about the mind is it can instantly recall everything in your whole life, right? From 3 years old all the way up to yesterday. Basically, sometimes you forget things, where the keys were, but it has instant recall of this, 10, depending how old you are, 20, 30, 40, 50 years of stuff. Boom. But how the information is stored is chronological. So your mind goes back in time, and then pulls it out sequentially. And that's how people who are untrained give their pitch, the way they learned about the project, right? So when somebody goes, it's got a 25% ROI, my guess is that's probably the first thing they learned about the project and how they came into it. Wow, we could make 25% on this project. And that's how they got sucked into it, right? As a developer. But the buyer, that's not what they want to hear. Buyers buy in a certain sequence, all right? And the sequence is not how most people listening to this conversation between you and I pitch, right? And so once you give information, the sequence that makes the buyer's mind comfortable. Oh, I was thinking about that. Boom, piece of information. Oh, I was wondering about that. Boom. And you're knocking those dominoes down in the moment that the question comes up. Now you have a pitch where nobody interrupts, nobody asks questions, nobody's on their phone, tweeting, texting, doing anything. I can tell you when I give these pitches, I'm giving hundreds of them, people who you would expect are busy, should be on their phone, talking to someone else, doing something else, thinking about something else, are taking notes. And I go, listen, you don't have to take notes. They go, I don't want to miss a moment of this, right? If you don't take notes, I'll give you the slides. But they still take notes. They're so afraid of missing the information because I'm giving them the exact information that they need at that moment. That's how you pitch anything. Now, how do you structure that? A lot of that is what we're going to do at the conference when you and I get together. But we can talk a little bit about it.
So there's going to be 2 presentations you're going to give at the conference. The first one is going to be in the general session, and you're gonna just teach the whole audience. You're going to take this conversation we've had and break it down and tell them, and specifically in addressing a lot of the real estate issues that people have with raising money for real estate projects. And then you're going to do a special session with just a small group of people for their particular needs. And tell us about what you plan on doing in both of those sessions, if you would.
Sure. So for the first session, I mean, we have to understand before we know the words to say, and I can give you the words to say, and you can repeat them, but until you know why you're saying them. So for example, I would start off a presentation. Hey, everybody, good to be here. I know we've been trying to get together for a while. We're super busy this time of year. I know you are as well. Does anybody need fluids in or out? If not, let's get started. We've got a 20-minute presentation here today. We'll try and get through it in a little bit less than that. After that, I'll give you some time to tell us a little bit about yourselves. And if our circles overlap, and you know, we continue to have interest in each other, I'm sure we'll find a way to move forward. Okay, ready? So that took me 25 seconds.
Right.
Why would we say those things as opposed to anything else? That sets the stage for a million good things to happen. One thing, notice what I didn't say. Thank you so much for having us here. It's great to be here today. We really appreciate it. We've been wanting to meet with you guys for a long time. We've prepared a great presentation, and I know you're going to really enjoy it. Please stop me if you have any questions, right? That's the way most of them start. We didn't say any of that stuff. We raised our status to that of a peer. Most presentations start as the company or the individual coming in at a low status position and supplicating to the money, right? When you're in the low status position and you're asking somebody for money, a couple things happen. They pay cursory attention to you. It's hard to focus on you. They think about other things. Their risk-taking behavior is much higher in the high status position. And it is difficult for them to actually hear the ideas that you have, and attention is very short. When you raise your status to that of a peer, right, the buyer can pay attention to you. The buyer's interested in what you're saying. The buyer ascribes credibility and truth to the things you're saying. So the first things in the ability to pitch anything is not talking about what you have or any of the features or the ROI. It's raising your status to that of a peer with the buyer and letting him know that money is a commodity and it can be attained anywhere.
Oh my gosh. So I was interrupting you only to say I often tell this story when I give presentations, and I tell the story and I end it with money is fungible. So in other words, I think a lot of our clients and the people who are going to be attending CrowdConverge, their biggest thing to overcome is their own mental state, where they have to figure out and understand that they have something to offer. They have an opportunity that may be unique, and that they have to remember that money is fungible and is a commodity and can be obtained almost anywhere. So that they can't be thinking that their investors are here and offer them something that they must obtain and they are down here, but rather that maybe even not just going like this, but going like this a little bit, where they're putting themselves above the investor and understanding that their money, like you said, is a commodity. It's fungible. That more can be created and they can get it in other places.
So it's a 3-stage process for sure. We know you come in at a low status position, right? Because that's how the buyer perceives the relationship, right? So step 1 is to get a meeting logistically and recognize this setup. So step 1 is recognition of what's happening. Step 2, alignment, right? Signal that you're a peer. And step 3, right, that you're not going to chase, that what you have is unique, that what you have is special, that you have integrity, honesty. And step 3 is what we have is in demand and the buyer has to chase us. That is the 3 steps that anybody who has closed a deal will describe to you in some terms or another. All right.
So great. Okay. All right. I'm going to stop you there because you need to save some for CrowdConverge. And well, obviously there's so much more digging to do.
Well,
so
let me finish it with a thought. Let me finish it with one thought and we'll save the rest for being there in person. People, so in tech, right? And not just sometimes in real estate, but in tech a lot, people say, well, what's the valuation of this deal? Unlike real estate, there aren't comps, right? In real estate, there's typically pretty good comps. In tech, there aren't good comps. So the valuation of the deal or the price that the deal is going to get done at, and in real estate as well, is largely a function of demand. All right. So if you can increase demand with a better pitch that more people believe in, are interested in, and are willing to participate in, it gives you more options, more demand, the better the price. Price is a function of demand, and demand is a function of your ability to tell a great story about what it is you have, how things are changing, and how you fit in the new world order, not why your project is good. There's a million people out there with a million projects saying that their project is good as well. How are things changing? How do you fit in the new order? How many people can you tell that story to? How much demand can you generate? And then what do you do with that demand once you have it? That's how you pitch anything.
Oh, thank you, Oren. Okay, Oren, even though this has been way longer than any other people you should know and incredibly, incredibly valuable, I still have to end with our question that we ask all of our guests, and that is, what book do you recommend?
So I recommend my new book that isn't published yet.
Good enough.
I have a new book coming out you're going to love. So read Pitch Anything. I have a book I love by a guy who's with my publisher, Ryan Holiday. You may have heard him, The Daily Stoic. I like it. It's a nice reset to what are the core values of humans interacting with each other and with ourselves, The Daily Stoic. I like anything about these Stoic stuff, but Pitch Anything. And then my new book, The User's Guide to Power, will be some fun material as well.
Oh, I can't wait. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm writing those both down, The Daily Stoic. And can you pre-order your The User's Guide to Power on?
No, you can't. It's still being written. Matter of fact, as soon as we hang up here, I'm going to finish writing the last chapter and then submit it to the publisher and pray that they don't send it back to me and go, what is this?
Well, Oren, thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for being our keynote at CrowdConverge. And we hope to see all of you there. And I am just so excited. I can't wait. I can't wait till February 1st and 2nd, Mandalay Bay. See you all there. And thank you to my special guest, Oren Klaff.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Jillian. Okay. Bye now.